Welcome back to Sustainable Culture. I cannot believe I am saying that. It's been 2 years, guys. It's been a long time. And it is so good to be sitting in this chair, talking into this microphone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, this is a podcast about exploring the relationship between humans, society, our psyche, and the natural world. My name is Jet McLaughlin. I'm your host. I'm so stoked to be here. It has been since, I'm thinking, March of 2022. I believe that's accurate. So over 2 years since I hosted a podcast of any kind. So it's just great to be back to Sustainable Culture, and I'm just stoked to be able to do episodes again. I've got some stuff lined up that is very exciting. Let me just start off with a couple of announcements here before we get into the episode itself. Number one, there's a Kickstarter campaign going on. Now, depending on when you're listening to this may or may not be valid. Kickstarters, as you know, are a limited thing. This one ends on September 21st, 2024. So depending on when you're listening, when this is released, it should have a little over 2 weeks left in the campaign. What we're saving up for, what we're trying to fund, is a brand new PC for the podcast production. We need to upgrade old Bessie that I've been using here for a while. I've been using a laptop that is definitely great for what it is, but I bought it brand new in 2017, and that is ancient in computer years. It is physically falling apart. I've got some very stylish, I might add, black duct tape that is keeping this baby together. One of the USB ports is broken. It's definitely hurting. It's doing its best, but it's gonna die here at any point, and I'm starting to get nervous about the longevity of this thing. So check out the Kickstarter campaign. I will leave the link because I made it as short as possible, but it's still kind of long. I'm gonna leave it in the show notes so that you can see where that page is. Go check it out. There's a whole lot of fun rewards for different tiers, depending on what you feel comfortable donating. If your pledge simply involves sharing on your social media page, that's still very much appreciated, and I would encourage you to do so. Word of mouth is an incredible tool, so I will still appreciate and be very grateful for anything that you'd be willing to do to support the Kickstarter campaign in general. Speaking of the rewards, t-shirts! I'm working on them. The big challenge with t-shirts right now, as a podcast that really focuses on sustainability and society and all that kind of thing, I really want to make these t-shirts clean as far as sourcing and material, and do my best to be as conscious as possible with said t-shirts and the materials that are used to make them. So I'm in the shopping process. If you have any suggestions about brands or anything like that, I'm all ears. I'm kind of looking through different people. I would love to support local. I'm in Post Falls, Idaho. So if you have any ideas on where might be nearby or whatever that I might be unaware of, I would encourage you to let me know at the email at jet@sustainableculture.online. I would certainly appreciate that. So thank you very much. Trash pickups. Here's another thing. Those of you familiar with the podcast know that we have gotten together and organized a variety of different trash pickup events in real life, in IRL. We're definitely going to be continuing to do that sort of thing. I'm currently planning a fall pickup and contacting potential sponsors and partners for that. So if you'd like to get involved, or if you know someone who might be a good fit, please do reach out. Again, at the email address, jet@sustainableculture.online. There is also a new website address. We've changed it a bit. It used to be sustainableculturepodcast.com. It is now sustainableculture.online. So again, that is sustainableculture.online. If you want to check out that website, I'm going to be updating that, just depending on what we're doing at the time, putting the most recent episodes on there, putting links on how you can sponsor the podcast in various ways. So all of that stuff will be centered on the website itself, as well as being able to contact. So if you can't remember the email address and that kind of thing, you'll be able to contact me through the contact page on the website as well. Now, this week's episode is with the owners and operators of 10-6, a breakfast brunch restaurant with more magic and whimsy than you can wave a wand at. It is, in a nutshell, New Orleans-inspired cuisine with a sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle Disney influence. Think Alice in Wonderland maximalism with the most inventive and delicious Cajun breakfast food Idaho has to offer by a lot. These two stand out as business owners for a few key reasons. They prioritize their employees instead of just saying they do. They consider themselves supporters of their business rather than lords over their domain. For instance, they'll do dishes, they'll work on the line, they do not care. As long as the business is running smoothly, they will do so happily and energetically, and I love that. And finally, they are on a mission to change how the restaurant industry works from the inside out, in both culture and in practice. And if that doesn't sound like a potential guest for this particular podcast, I don't know who is. So full disclosure, I work for these two. I do work at 10-6 as a server and a bartender and a barista. Not only is this a cool opportunity to know where you can come and visit me IRL, but you can also come and check the place out. It is an experience that you truly must see in person to believe. It is one of the most unique places I have ever been to eat any kind of food, breakfast or otherwise. It is truly an inspiration to meet with people so passionate about the people that work for them and the business model that they want to see grow and become something that is self-sufficient. So one last quick order of business before we get into it as well. There's going to be shop noise in the background. There's going to be an ice machine clunking around. It does that a few times through the recording. You're also going to hear some refrigerators kind of clickety-clickety and stuff like that. There's cars driving by. My apologies if that sort of thing bothers you. For me, it sort of drowns out after the first 5 minutes or so. So just be aware that that is a thing. Hopefully one day we'll have a cool, fancy recording studio and that kind of thing won't be a thing. But for now, just know that it's there, okay? Without further ado, folks, TJ and Mama Jill, the most gracious restaurant rule breakers you have ever met. Okay, so I'm sitting here with TJ. I'm sitting here with who we call Mama Jill. for this entire conversation, I'm going to be referring to her as Mama or Mama Jill, perhaps. I love that so much. And that's just going to that's just so people just get used to that. If you hear sudden crashing in the back, that's an ice machine named QB, who we love very much.
He's working really hard.
He's working hard all the time, every day. So if you hear a sudden, that's QB.
Yeah, that's my guy.
For something that works so hard, he just can't keep up either.
Oh man, the poor guy.
Put the ice dilemma.
Yeah, the ice machine that could.
The little one that could.
Some of the time.
Sorry.
So. Man, I'm absolutely pumped because this is the first episode after a long hiatus of the podcast, and I could think of no one less than the two of you to kick things off, and that is genuinely the case.
That means
and full disclosure, too, for anyone listening, I sincerely think I don't know if we're going to get through this conversation without a little bit of tears and gushing, so...
I absolutely thought that was going to happen. I know Mom already started.
100%. So I want to start real quick just to familiarize a lot of people around this local area. Know you guys. I was going to say us, because full disclosure as well, I'm an employee of the restaurant that these two own, and this is very much. This was my idea. It has nothing to do with the fact that I work here. It was definitely just something that I wanted to do because I admire these two. And this is also not an intention to get a raise either. So I just want to put that out there in the air.
Ezra, if you're listening.
Ezra, okay. You can make your own decisions. That's fine. But I want to start though with a quick introduction to you two. And what I want to do is, I thought it would be kind of fun to start chronologically, if you will. And I want to start with Mama.
Oh,
I love that.
Okay.
well, we're going way back then.
We're going
started.
back a little further, and the thing is we a lot of us can identify TJ. Those who know TJ can kind of identify her with, 10-6 and where that sort of came from, its roots. And people who know you could go back a little further. But I want to start first off because truly I don't really know much about your history, Mama. So I want to get a little bit of like a 5-minute, if you could, synopsis, at your best ability.
Okay.
Don't hold yourself to it too bad. But I want to get a background of restaurant-wise and creativeness within that world. Like, where did that start for you, and where did it all begin? And give me an idea of a quick roadmap up till now.
Mama's
Wow.
roadmap.
How about this?
Yeah,
How about this?
yeah.
Up to TJ.
Oh, okay.
Let's do a roadmap up to
Okay.
TJ, and
Love.
then we'll continue on to you.
Okay.
This is going to be the
Oh,
best.
yeah, we can do this. Okay. So, just like most kids in the 70s, my parents, didn't stay together very long. It's when the divorce rate really hit the crazy times, and so I come from a divorced family. I didn't grow up with my mom. I grew up with my dad, and he was a truck driver, and so we really didn't have anybody at home cooking. Okay,
Yeah.
So I kind of took it upon myself, even as a young girl, to try, but it was pretty bad. Then I just became more and more passionate and almost a little bit obsessed about learning about food, because I didn't have anybody teaching me, and it just became a real focus of something I could exert some creativity in. So I got married pretty young. I wasn't a very good cook, but I kept learning, and then I really got into it. I got to go visit my brother, who lived in Louisiana, in the military, on a military base, and he took me to NOLA for one day. I broke my foot jumping off a horse carriage, but I love that city so much I continued to walk around the rest of the afternoon.
No way.
Couldn't even get my sandal off at the end of the day.
Just a swollen.
Yeah, like, I don't care. I'm in New Orleans. I don't care.
It's the experience
Broken
that
foot,
matters.
don't
Just
Give me another hurricane. It's
Yeah,
fine.
one more
oh
hurricane.
my gosh.
But of course, fell in love with the culture, and that just fueled this, even from a young age, curiosity about food and different cultures in the food realm. That trip to NOLA just set me off on a
solidified.
completely different trajectory as far as what my passion became. I very kind of science oriented. I was kind of a school nerd, and I became a nurse because I just loved the study of the human body and science, and loved math and chemistry, and so that just seemed to be a natural path for me. So
Also hugely off your grandmother, too.
and my definitely my mentor and somebody that shaped who I am. My grandma was a nurse, so that just I just kind of fell into that. So I was a nurse for 22 years, and now we could kind of pick it up with TJ because.
Okay, so you were a nurse for 22 years. Before we continue to TJ, I just want to highlight, because I can't help but think we're skipping over some things.
Oh, maybe a little.
We
I mean, 22
completely
years
are.
is a good amount of time. TJ's like, wait, yeah, 100%.
are.
So where did
Modest.
cooking fit in that 22 years, or did it?
Oh, totally. So, I kind of focused on when I was younger and how I became, really obsessed with like learning about food. But when I got married, like I said, I wasn't a very good cook. I had TJ pretty soon after I got married, and I just really got into it. I was like, I got to learn how to bake. I got to cook. I got to, and really like started reading cookbooks, like novels, like going to bed with a cookbook, but reading it, from start to finish, as like you were reading a story. And just became really aware that my best memories were being created around cooking with my family, my siblings, my
Crank the
grandparents.
music. It was even. I'm sure this happened before I was even.
Yes.
But I even remember as a little tiny sprout was like, just the entirety of it was an event. Like
Yes.
the music was loud. We'd be dancing around the kitchen. Like Have you seen that, Practical Magic, the movie with the margarita? I mean, I swear that was like our life. Like the margaritas in the kitchen at midnight. Like absolutely, I lived that as a kid. Like insane.
So cooking wasn't just this begrudging, like, what's for dinner. It was more like an actual family experience.
Oh yeah, and it was, we loved,
like
we
even like
loved
just going to the grocery store. Like you don't ever go shopping with mom because she will go down every damn aisle, every single aisle.
I like to see stuff.
And like we'll go for. I mean, as a kid, like as a kid, I was like, Mom.
Full disclosure, I really want to go shopping with you sometime.
It's not even.
Jet, you and I'd be there for like 2 hours.
No, it's
man.
That's the intention.
Serious.
I would absolutely love
So
that.
like even from going to the grocery store to get the ingredients to make this meal, that was the event. And then going and unloading the car and then putting the music on and prepping and the whole, it was from start to finish, the whole thing. So it's just such a cool thing to think about.
Wow.
So yeah, I just became really aware that was
So
what was creating those best memories.
How old were you when TJ came around?
I
Came around. I love
when-
it.
when
When
she-
TJ walked in the door,
when
how old were you?
She'll be coming around the mountain.
when she popped into my life, I was
very
20. I was 20. We got married really young. I was only 19 when I got married.
Oh my gosh, that's a trip. My mom was 20 when she had me.
Whoa.
Yeah.
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 She was 19 when she was pregnant with me and 20 when she had me.
That's it.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
So I was
cool.
young.
Is that what you just...
She tried.
Yeah.
I try real hard.
Doody.
Craig's
Yeah.
the musician, not me.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much for that because
that
I
was-
have never heard that background from you.
Yeah. That's kind of.
Then again, I've never asked, to be honest, but
Yeah.
we save some stuff for the recording, so we
Yeah.
gotta save some things.
We don't get a
really
lot
do.
of time to sit down and
No.
We don't.
and talk,
Sadly.
do we?
No, we savor it when we do, but it is few and far
How many
between.
beignets you got left?
I got 3 all day.
Well, okay, so from there then, we have this background of a focus, and this is important, a focus on science, I think, is pretty tied to cooking because I was told one time that baking is the most basic form of chemistry there is, and I never thought of it that way until someone said that, and it was my chemistry professor at the time that actually told me that, and I was like, no way, actually that's true.
It's very true.
So that makes total sense that you would have been interested in cooking and baking and all that stuff. And so TJ is a young lass, and I can only imagine some of the background stuff. So fill me in. Feel free to try and make it as brief or as long as you want. We'll say 5-ish minutes.
Okay.
I'm not really holding either of you to this, of course. But give me a background on not just you in a cooking sense, but you as a person that led up to what is now.
Okay.
Like, give me some context.
So it's amazing how Mama describes her childhood being what it was. I really love hearing stories of her childhood of with my grandfather and stuff, and he would quite literally take the girls, so my mom and her older sister, on the road with him and
Long haul trucking.
And so she's always told me I just want you to have a better childhood than I ever did. And I've watched her almost kill herself over that, and that's just, her, you see her every day and how hard she works. That's what she does, and it's just very overwhelming to have grown up in a home like that, because that's quite literally what happened.
It's inspiring
Yeah.
and heart-wrenching at the same time, in the most endearing sense.
Right.
As best I could put it. I told you we wouldn't get through this without tears.
I'm already bawling.
I know.
Well,
I've still got
I
4.5
bawled when
minutes.
Jet
No, I'm
started
kidding.
the introduction.
So
Anyway, please
I know.
continue.
No, I know. So if that just shapes a little bit for you of kind of what I was growing up in, a home where you feel safe and you feel seen and you feel heard and you feel empowered to do quite literally anything that you put your mind to. I know that sounds so cliche and silly, but that was it. And I was very lucky to have 2 parents that loved me both more than life itself, and separately, because they got divorced when I was very young too. Feeling
Which, by the way, not to interject your story,
you're good.
but I am interjecting your story. That's a funny thing.
Literally, I am
I don't mean to, but I'm gonna. But
But I
no,
allow it.
my
Watch
my
me.
parents as well. This is another weird parallel. Is that my parents were also divorced when I was quite young. I was literally, I think, barely 2.
Oh wow,
So
for sure.
So just the interesting parallels sometimes
Absolutely,
we have.
same. Yeah, and we've talked about that a lot. We're like, hey,
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey, that's weird.
I see you.
Hey,
That's weird.
whoa.
So yeah, I both of them, loved me. And to say the other part of this is all of my grandparents too. It sounds so silly because it's like, even though there's so many, you know, tumultuous things, turmoil in my childhood, you would have never probably known, because like I did at the end of the day have people love me more than anything. So I was allowed, or felt like I could be myself. And a lot of kids growing up, I know that's just, it's heart-wrenching to think that they don't get to do that. And so I was that kid that wore leg warmers and high heels in high school, and I wore tutus to school, and I was a complete nerd at the same time.
None of this is a surprise.
No,
Straight
quite
up.
not. I know.
I would be disappointed if that wasn't the case. Like, you mean you were a normal kid? Get out of my face.
way.
Interview's over.
Bizarre. I quit. We're done. So I was just allowed to be myself, and in that I definitely felt all the emotions a young child does, and you know, all these things, but I cannot pinpoint it, and I don't really know why. But one day I looked at my mom and I was like, we're gonna open a restaurant someday. And I like, plain as day, no joke on my face.
You were 13.
I told her that.
I was just going to ask. I've heard some of this
And
before.
it's
And I
weird
remember
to
13.
Yeah.
We had been cooking,
Yeah.
and you had youth group friends that would come over to the house on Wednesday nights.
And it was actually at this
This
table.
is our table.
No joke.
This
was,
is
we
the
call it
table.
the
The
Rathrum.
table we're sitting
Yeah,
at?
Yes.
this is called the Rathrum House
This is
table.
the Rathrum House
This
table.
is the
You
table.
guys didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
this
that's
is
so
where-
cool. We're recording on the table that you guys were
the
sitting at.
Rathrum House table.
Yeah,
We call it.
and her little buddies, they wanted chicken Caesar salad and garlic bread every Wednesday night.
Our palates were very developed.
Yeah, we were real fancy.
Dude,
back then.
okay, full disclosure. I used to have, my brother and I used to pound down when we were kids a whole bowl of, I mean, a massive mound of spaghetti and a full glass of whole milk.
Yeah.
I don't know what, and there's going to be a lot of people listening to that going, what is that? But let me tell you something.
Did when you were a kid.
If you've never tried it, these days I say whole
Yeah.
milk is an ingredient and not a drink, and I stand by that.
Yeah.
But you've heard me say that.
Absolutely.
But man, when I was a kid,
Oh yeah.
some sketty and whole
But
milk,
isn't
that
that
was
great that you have
nothing
that
better.
that ties you back to that, and it's just
Yeah.
that's invaluable, and that's what it was. That's exactly what that was. As ghetto as that sounds, it's exactly what stemmed the whole thing of host. It's just hosting. I say hosting, but quite literally, like Mom had touted earlier, but making the best memories with your favorite people, and the commonality we all have in this world is food. Whether we choose to like dine or we choose to just eat and fuel our bodies, but it's everything. It's what we all do. Every single person does that, and it's bizarre to get down on a real raw level of just eating together. It was really weird. I had this little tiny little segue, but it kind of ties in. I was like, can't remember, we go to Capone's all the time because that's Sully's favorite. So he freaking loves Capone's.
Oh, yeah, you've told-
Every
yeah.
time I'm like, what do you want? Capone's. So we were at Capone's one day and we were eating, and I looked up at Craig and I was like, do you realize that restaurants are literally a place where a bunch of strangers just go and eat together? Nobody knows each other. Nobody knows what's going on in people's lives, but they just go and eat together. And I'm like, this is crazy. And so so food is like to be
Good way to tie people together.
Yeah.
Like income level,
Doesn't matter.
status,
Yep.
the car they drive, the people they hang out with.
It does not matter.
They come into the same building and
You
they're
don't see
in
that.
the same place.
Yeah.
Weird. So, and that's what I felt like.
Which, by the way, that happens at Taco Bell too, but we're not going to talk about it.
at Taco Bell, yeah. After 2 p.m. or sorry, 2 a.m. After 2 a.m. It's never gonna
20-year-old Honda
Yeah.
Civic with a brand new with a brand new Audi. They're all there, baby.
all there.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's what I felt like with youth group, because like I think I had friends in every single sort of group. I had friends that were stereotypical jocks or stereotypical gothics or stereotypical
Yeah.
they were all, it was weird, but we all came together and it was just really fun.
Wow.
Come to Mom's house.
Well, that actually is a wonderful. Thank you both for that, because I've never actually gotten the full sort of chronological picture, and I'm really glad we did it that way because that was fun for me. And
Thank you
I
for
hope
even asking.
I hope that the listeners
I
out there
had
have
to
gotten as much fun out of that as me. So now that we've already cried once.
Uh-huh.
We're sitting in the restaurant right now, which is a delight, of course. And, obviously I said I work here and everything, so I'm here all the time. And so I'm obviously biased a bit. But in everything you guys do, there's always this, in the restaurant, when you look around, you can see this, there's a genuine sincerity. And there's QB back there. I
He
don't know if
wanted
you-
to comment.
He wanted to comment. He's like, yes, I agree.
Yes,
But there is this sincerity and there's this care that you put into every little detail. And for those of you who haven't been inside this restaurant or anything that these two have created, it's I'll just say for you guys, I don't, it is maximalist, but it is intentional. So it's not cluttered. When you look around, you're like, oh, they meant for that to be there. Oh, this is an individual art piece. And there's all these little pieces that are like basically sculptures, some of them. And so there's this sincerity that I am mentioning into every little detail. And you can see that the more and more you look around. So where do you two suppose that comes from? And why is it important to you, not just as business owners, but as people? Let's start with TJ, and then we'll move over to Mama.
Well, this one's easy for me because it's quite literally, again, going back to my childhood. This is no joke. This is exactly what my house looked like growing up.
Really?
I'm not even kidding you.
With the maximalism kind of?
But it was weird because, like, when you see how Mom does her quote-unquote decorating, it's like a whole orchestra. Like, it is. It's bizarre. It's like her, like, in the best way. Her thought process is like, she takes, like, she calls them vignettes. Right?
Okay.
So you have, like, each little, like,
I've heard you say that before, actually.
This little teapot situation in the drawer, that's a vignette. And she'll take it, like, corner by corner. Mm-hmm. And, like, you can already tell, like, in her mind, she's already written the whole symphony, right? She's already written it. But, like, she takes it section by section. Like, okay, that's the brass section. Okay, I'm going to piece you together. That's the woodwind section. I'll piece you together. And then when you all see it together, it's like a whole freaking orchestra. It's nuts. And I think that it's just always been, that's exactly how I grew up. The dining room that this table was in, it was like almost like a Spanish.
It was Mexican tile.
Like Mexican tile. Like
every
Spanish
chair was
influence.
a different bright color.
But then you'd go to the living room and it was like this painted red concrete floor with like you felt like you're
before people did concrete floors. Like this was like
the early 90s.
You're doing what?
Early 90s.
Early
okay.
90s.
Yeah, we were all doing the linoleum
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
So
whatever
people
that
did
was.
think we were really odd.
No, super odd. Like we were like on Edward Scissorhands, you like
oh yeah,
that cookie cutter neighborhood. No, yeah, we were totally, that was us.
Interesting.
Just really
I mean,
cool.
I'm not surprised. I mean, but that's because I kind of know you guys, so it's just funny. But that's a fun image to think about. So, Jill, would you say that? Like, what commentary would you have on that?
Oh, I mean, yeah, completely. We call it lovingly the Rathdrum House because I mean we were there for a lot of years, but it had character. I mean, it
sure sounds like it.
It really did. It had French double red doors.
Mind you, this house was tiny.
And it was tiny.
Tiny. You could throw a rock and hit the end of the hallway. Like,
Yeah.
How many bedrooms?
Surprisingly,
Two-bedroom
only
house.
Yeah.
and one bath.
One bath. Yeah, it was tiny. We had a huge backyard.
Huge yard.
Yeah. But,
Massive.
we spent so much time there, and my uncle owned an antique store in the 1970s, and we got a few pieces as a family from him. That is his piece right there from his antique store. That hung in his.
We're pointing to you're pointing to the mirror.
Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a beautiful. Would you describe it for me, for our dear
Like
listeners?
if you have any history about it, I know. I don't really know.
It's like a wood. I mean, I'll just say it's like a wooden
Shelving unit.
Shelving unit.
With
That's
It's got
multiple mirrors.
Multiple mirrors. There's wooden sort of pillars on the side of it.
Yeah.
It's definitely old. Like it's
Yes.
definitely not a new. You don't see this type of stuff anymore.
No.
Sadly.
Very sadly. So that is here on loan. He said, "Yeah, you can borrow it for your restaurant." So my uncle is somebody who has created wine and
No pressure.
Anyway,
I know.
could go. Had his own winery and all that. I mean, pretty well known guy in that world. But long story short, I got my love for antiques really seriously from him. And being in his house, he lives up on the South Hill. He's been there for almost 50 years, and his house is old and beautiful. And I just appreciated that aesthetic so much. And then I have a really quirky best friend that is so eclectic and collects the most bizarre things, and he and I got really into just talking about things and creating vignettes together. That's literally what we would do on a weekend. Like, do you want to come over and I don't know.
Yeah, all of a sudden I'd see
put
Jimmy,
art on my bathroom wall, and he's like, sure.
Yeah, he'd be over like on a weekend.
He was
I'd
just
be
fully in.
coming home from school on a Friday, and Jimmy and Mom are like ripping out the kitchen wall. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
bye
we
guys,
did
love
some
you. Like
major
that was
remodeling.
normal in my house, like in our house, like it was almost every month there was a major, huge overhaul of something going on in our house. Like constantly.
Now the bathroom's turquoise.
Yeah.
Our bathroom was that color.
And they did
Oh,
the
this
bathroom,
color here.
yes,
Okay.
turquoise, like
Beautiful, bright,
Yep.
bold
Yep.
they
turquoise
did the
color.
bathroom
yeah.
as like an old like Hawaiian like the romance novels from like the very first romance novels.
Oh yeah.
They did like all these like covers of like these romance novels, like all blue Hawaii, and like it was just. I'm sure people that like kids that walked into our bathroom were like, "I'm a man now."
I'm a.
And that day,
And that day I became a man.
he became a man.
At Mama Jim's.
Yeah, Mama. Go eat your Caesar salad.
Well,
Go
any
eat
book
your
you read that uses a term like throbbing member, I think makes you an adult immediately. I have to say.
Yeah, adult up.
You've just grown up. Yeah.
So I hope that explains a lot about us.
Oh my gosh.
We don't take ourselves too seriously.
Never.
That's a good. I think that's wonderful. I had someone say that about me one time, and I took it as a compliment. I said, I was training a replacement when I was leaving an administrative job, and I was telling him. I was telling him that I try not to take too many things seriously because why would you? It just stresses me out to do that. And he comments back, and I took it in an endearing way because he truly did mean it this way. But he said, I'd say you don't take anything seriously. And some people might go, excuse me, but I just laughed really hard because I was like, yeah, this guy gets it.
You're not wrong.
This guy gets me. So,
Made my mark.
yeah. So I want to, we're definitely going to switch gears here. I want to talk a bit about, so thank you, first off, a quick, just thank you very much. We've got a lot of background from you guys, and I think this has been wonderful for context and especially for folks who have never been to your restaurant and who have never met you two as people. Because it is quite an experience to both come here and to meet you guys, honestly. I want to talk a bit about, this being the podcast that it is, we talk about a lot of cultural issues. And one of those things that I want to kind of address, and just to see what you folks say. So turnover in businesses. We were talking a bit, and I won't mention the business for privacy's sake, but we were talking a bit before the recording about a place that we noticed has really high turnover. And we were talking about how that's not a good sign and everything. So turnover in businesses, particularly restaurants, because that's your specialty arena here. I want to see if you guys, we'll start with you, Jill, because we started with TJ on the last one. I want to talk about some causes and how you've decided to keep people around.
So again, just going back to the fact that I was a nurse at the hospital for 22 years. 10 years of that career was in management. I actually was the clinical manager and essentially the acting director at the outpatient surgical center. So I have some management leadership, background, and coming into this arena, this industry, the restaurant world. Obviously, there's so much that needs to change. And
notoriously
and
so.
Notoriously
Yeah,
so.
it's no mystery to anyone. Yeah.
No, it's out there. It's everybody knows. This
Yeah.
is one of the hardest industries to work in, period, as an employee. And, as an employer, keep people happy. Your margins are what they are, and you only have so much to work with. So it has to be something more than absolutely only monetary. TJ and I talk about it all the time. One of the big reasons we are doing this, we want to change the way that folks are thought of, respected, or I'm looking for the right word, seen that work in this industry.
Yeah.
Our full-time employees here, we want to give them a $250 stipend for health insurance.
You don't hear about that much.
That should be doable. We're doing it. We want to have folks feel like they're part of the mission. This is not just for me and TJ. This is for a 10-6 family to grow and change this industry, do something different. Just because this is the way it always has been, we're not going forward with that. We need to have a place here, especially with us, that people feel seen and valued, and I feel like they are part of the creativity that happens here. That's the most important thing, and I feel like that's where you get your engagement from folks. If they really feel a part of what your mission is and they buy into it. you've got them, and you can grow together and do some really cool things. I was happy that the last chapter, we took our whole staff to New Orleans. The whole staff. We took them.
The whole staff, you took them down.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that on Instagram ages ago, it seems like. It was like, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah. Because we wanted them to know what inspired us to, why do we cook red beans and rice and gumbo, and why do we have this seasoning called Red Gator? And we wanted them to visit the city that I fell in love with 35 years ago that inspired me. And so
Experience it for themselves.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
just like a different way of like understanding that there's so many different parts of the world that people think differently and they just live differently, and it's so good to not be exposed to it necessarily, but life doesn't have to be this way or whatever way you
The whole this whole thing that you run into a lot that I've noticed is, well, that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
We've just done it all this,
Why?
so that's how it's done.
Yeah.
And you guys have dared to ask why, and you've gone even further than the why, and you've gone, well, so what?
Right.
And you've done it your own way.
Yeah. And it's funny, so in this really short journey that I've had of, restaurant world and whatnot, and there's very few people that I follow for leadership and stuff, but there's a gentleman by the name of Lee Cockerell, and he was the Walt Disney, he's an executive at Walt Disney World, and he was in the business for so many years, but he is kind of kind of stepped out in the role of leadership, podcasting and stuff, and so he's someone I follow, but up until even this last year, I think I kind of I really followed him to a T and everything he said, and I love him dearly, but something that he always says too is the customer, is usually always probably right. They're always probably right. However, let's change that up a little bit, because if your team is not, like Mom said, feel appreciated, loved, respected, then the guest will feel that. It's a bonus that the guest is having a good time, because our focus now, oddly enough, I love you all so much that supports us and our guests and everything, but right now our focus is on our team, wholeheartedly 110%, which you would have asked me that 5 years ago, maybe that wouldn't have been the case. I probably would have been equal to me, but now I'm no, because why are we here? Because our team creates freaking magic in this room every single day, because they feel that way.
Yeah.
And then it's a bonus that now, oh gosh, the guest feels that, and now it's magic.
Which is so cool to hear you say it that way, because I would just say in American culture, I don't know about other countries enough yet, but in American culture, especially, I don't know if it's especially in the restaurant world or not, but in a lot of businesses, it's flipped. It's sort of upside down. You guys have kind of flipped it upside down in that the focus first off is on profit, and then so labor kind of gets shoved to the wayside, because how do you maximize profit? Oh, the first thing to go is labor. And so, and I understand there's a lot of difficult decisions that you have to make, and I know that it's complex and whatnot, but you folks have made this conscious decision going, yeah, we know it's going to be expensive to make this decision, but by focusing on the people who work here, it's a tangible, energetic thing that you feel as a tenant when you come here as a customer, and you're like, dude, people really like their jobs. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a huge impact on return business that I don't think a lot of business owners acknowledge.
No, and then guess what? Things taste better. Things look better. Things are magical, more amazing, because you guys are able to put the passion that you are here for in it and not feel stifled or a thumb over you, or because let's be real here, we hire and we look for people that are better than us. Quite plain on. I'm dead ass looking at you because you are a better barista than I will ever be. And no joke. It's the truth.
Man, this is okay. So I'm laughing because
I'm just being honest
okay,
here.
so dear listener, you are not clued into the fact that we have had many arguments actually behind the bar about who has better latte art, and TJ will never acknowledge her own skill, but she is such a good secret pourer. And I say secret pourer because she is super good and doesn't tell a soul about it, and has never participated in a latte art throwdown, to my knowledge,
I
but
have done
ought to.
one.
You have done one, okay.
But it was one I did not know how to do latte art.
Okay.
I'm an anomaly.
I told TJ because because you guys did a latte art throwdown here.
Yes.
And it was a very fun event. And I told TJ, I was like, why did you not just participate in your own throwdown, win, and then go, yeah, it's my restaurant, bitches, bye. And I think that would have been the funniest power move you could have possibly played.
Because I feel like
Oh,
trash.
But I think, jokes aside, though, I think that your humility is genuine, and it's just really interesting and just really inspiring because you genuinely, both of you, choose, because it is a choice, you choose to acknowledge your own skill. Yes, I think you both are aware of the fact that you're good at what you do, but that you don't choose to talk about it all the time because you know fully that your team, without your team, you wouldn't be here.
And quite frankly, it's way more fun to watch you guys do what you do. Oh my gosh, like it is this is very selfish. And it's odd because I think hospitality is like, we don't talk about it enough, but it's a selfish thing because you feel good.
Oh yeah.
People feel good.
It's constant. It's constant affirmation.
Yeah.
Like if you're a person who, like me, has a love language of words of affirmation, it's the perfect solution for that when you're doing it.
And so let's be real. It's way more fun to watch you guys just fly, and it's so cool to see. So, and especially when you take, like we were talking about earlier, about our Rathdrum House and our little youth group, when you take people from all walks of life. I mean, we have such an eclectic crew, and I'm choking back tears because it's so freaking cool to see when everybody is on and everybody's just having the best time. And you would probably never see these characters outside of this storybook interacting in a story together.
That's very
That's
true.
true.
So cool.
Well, I think this is a perfect time. We're going to take a little break and maybe do some bathroom breaks. We're going to refill our wine, get some tissues, and we will be right back with a couple more questions. So we're back. Thank you guys for the little break. I appreciate you guys so much for being here once again. And listeners, thank you so much for hanging out. We were just talking a little bit ago about turnover in businesses and particularly restaurants and things like that and some causes. So to kind of sort of help wrap that point up and to kind of continue on it as well. There's a lot of big businesses. It's usually you see this in larger size businesses, particularly corporations, I've noticed, where you get this whole, I think they really fail, I think, to sell this idea that we're a family. We're a family. And you see that a lot, and anyone who's listening who has worked in the service industry, or not even the service industry, it's just, you get really numb to hearing that kind of stuff, and it just sounds so disingenuous, well said. But you guys really seem to have figured out the secret sauce, no pun intended, here. Why do you think that is?
Well, I really love that you're talking about this right now. I really do. I think that you're very intuitive to these things, and this, like you said, is a very relatable topic because we've all been there. I'm really thankful again for our team because someone particularly in general, Ezra, you know him and love him very well.
Ezra, for the listeners, is the general manager of 10-6, and just a heck of a guy. And Ezra, if you're listening, just think about that raise, my man. Don't worry about it. Genuinely, Ezra is definitely a huge piece of the glue that keeps this place together.
And the reason why too is because of what he brings to the table. But so Ezra started out as a server with us. His best friend Alex was our first head chef, just the most joyful, lovely humans I can even explain. I would explain the Foss band, because they had a band
Called
as,
Foss,
Called
yep.
Foss. I would describe them all as like little wildflowers. They're just the most beautiful things ever. Anyway, so we were very lucky to have Alex as our head chef round 1, in chapter 1. When we were open the first time, and then Ezra came on just to like serve part-time-ish because Alex
he was
working.
pretty convinced he wasn't gonna like
He's
it.
like,
He was like,
this is weird. He's like, I hate Disney.
And
I hate
Alex,
Disney.
and again,
I'm
I'm just going to keep chiming in for the listener who doesn't know.
No,
Alex,
thank you.
Alex is another guy who works here, who
Now?
was the head chef
Yeah.
and is now a server here,
back.
and
I
he's
know.
he's all over the place in this place.
I
So
know.
he's also got quite a history with 10-6
He
as well.
does.
Yeah.
So this whole group, they've forever implanted, themselves in this company, and I love them for that. And so Ezra's very, very valuable to us in so many different ways of just himself. But what he has, brought to the table too is when we were reopening this chapter 2 here, there was a lot of things that like Mama said earlier, like we want to change the game, we want to change this all forever. And in our quote unquote employee handbook that everyone technically has to have, and I think it's a very good thing to have. It's a very good tool. It's hospitable for your team to kind of like, here's what it is. Here's who we are. And
Here's our
what to
basic
expect.
set of expectations.
Yeah.
And it's funny. So the first chapter, there was so many things that we didn't know. We were developing ourselves still, and we used the word family quite a bit in the handbook. And I love Ezra because he sees things from a way different perspective than we do, and it's so great. He was like, you guys, I am the first to tell you, like, you don't need to use the word family. Your actions speak way louder than these dumb little words on a handbook. Don't use that word, because if someone that hasn't worked for you yet and they're reading this handbook, it sounds disingenuous. Like I said, like it does.
Well, I think there's a trauma that's kind of attached to
there
it.
totally is.
I can speak for myself and many people who are listening who are like, and just folks out there who have worked in different industries all over the place, particularly the service industry, are sold this idea that if you are a family,
Buy into it, man. Drink
drink the Kool-Aid, then we don't have to pay you well, and we don't have to treat you well.
Right.
Yep.
You're a family, you'll do this, right?
Right.
You'll come in on Saturday when there's no way in hell you should. But
Exactly.
you're family, so you're gonna
And I'm
Right.
so proud of
Yeah.
Ezra because
Yeah, it's used as a manipulative
It
tool
is.
as
Right,
opposed
it
to a
is.
culture that you tried to
Yes.
foster.
Yep.
correct.
So Ezra's really set the tone of like, right off the rip, like when you get hired, tell me your boundaries, because I'm not going to push those. I'm not. But you have to tell me them. You have to tell me your boundaries. So that, in case in point, will set the tone of like, hey, I trust you, you trust me, and that.
We respect you.
Yep.
Family first. Family first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird, oddly enough, but it's true.
Yeah.
Not here, but family first for your
For your-
family.
your
What is
direct
your
family.
life requiring of you? If you don't have that under control, or don't feel like that's getting away from you,
Then what are we doing?
What
here?
are we doing? How?
It's like being in a relationship that you aren't 100% confident in yourself yet. You need to be 100% fully you before you can perform for someone else.
Yeah.
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 It's just the truth. And it's a
And
way with relationships.
So we've been open 3 months, 4 months.
Well, I'm like
almost.
4-ish. Yeah. A little over 4
Guys,
months
sorry.
now.
Whoa.
Which, by the way, it doesn't seem like 4 months.
I
It seems like
know.
a year already
It
in some
does.
ways. It's wild
Is that
because
good or bad? Like,
well, what
like,
I mean that in a good way, because every day is so full.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Yeah.
there's some wonderful customers here that you guys got given an antique mirror of someone's
Oh my
grandmother's
gosh.
mirror that one day, and
No, we just got.
you guys were broken up into tears about, because why wouldn't you be? It was such a thoughtful thing to do for a restaurant. You know what I mean?
I
These
know.
restaurant owners.
Amazing.
So like every day is filled with these little moments like that, and I think that has just made time seem like it has passed by slower, but in a good way.
And I'm
But in a
so
good way.
glad. Thank you for saying that, because I think that is one of the things that we really wanted to create for the community, is just like when you walk through that damn door, from whatever you're dealing with, whatever you've got going on, and that is including our people, our team, not just our guests. That's our team. You walk through that door, you can just forget about it
We're
for like
here.
however long you're here. Sure.
Well, and if I may actually interject on that note, that's a wonderful thing you just brought up, because there was, and you guys probably recall, there was a couple of days there I remember coming in from my shift, and there was just stuff going on in my life, and there was a little bit of a heavy time, and I had a hard time dropping that stuff at the door pretty good about that generally, but, I came in and was just, I think the word would be melancholic. I was definitely like up in my brain, and I was here and I was doing things, but I remember, speaking of Ezra, he came up to me and was not as a manager in that moment. And what was interesting, we were talking about the trauma of that sort of thing. I was immediately kind of a little bit on the defense, not because Ezra has meant it this way or anything like that, but because of my own stuff. He came up to me and was just very genuinely concerned about me as a human being rather than an employee. Yeah. But I didn't see that at the exact offset. And he said, "Hey, man, I just noticed that," and he used the word melancholic. He said, I just noticed that you seem a little bit melancholic today. And lately, he was like, is everything okay? And he didn't mean that in terms of like, and most of the time, if that's ever happened to me in the past, it's been directly related to my performance at work. Right. Not because they cared a whit about what was actually happening, but from where he was coming from, and I didn't realize initially, but I ended up figuring that out, was he was like, I just want to make sure you're okay, right, that you're fine, and if you need anything, yep, please talk to me. Like, I want to know what it is that you need. And it was very genuine, and I wasn't prepared for that because of where I come from. And a lot of people who are listening could agree with that. Yeah. You would probably, if a manager came up to you and said, "Are you okay?" It's usually like, "Hey, I need you to go and clean the bathrooms real quick." Or like, "Hey, put that. I need you to drop it out the door." Yeah. And I come from that sort of background, and so I immediately didn't know how to take it. And it was fascinating. It's almost like being in a good relationship after so many bad relationships. Yes. You're immediately on the defense, but then you go, "Wait, is this real? They actually love me." It was crazy for me to go home that day and go, like, that was a really cool, genuine moment that I'm not used to. So to support this sort of prompt or question here, I think that a lot of this sort of like family atmosphere being so genuine is not something that people are used to, is immediately something that they would be suspicious of. Yes. But once you've experienced it, you're like, oh, like there is an actual way to enjoy where you work. And actually, TJ, I will just sort of segue into something that a prompt that I don't have written down, but I do want to touch on. Okay. One time you and I were talking about a business idea that I had that I won't mention.
Because it's a master plan.
It's super secret.
But we were talking about this, and I was picking your brain on some things, and you mentioned something that I've told a couple of people about actually since. And you said, a lot of people talk about work-life balance as something that you have to separate work and life. And it's a shame because I don't buy into that, you said. And you said, and I'm paraphrasing, but you said, I just decided one day that I want my work to be a part of my life. So why would I not make my work something that I enjoy? Because I'm going to be here every day. It's most of my life. It's most of most people's life. So why would you try and separate your work from your life? Yeah. Right. If you are unhappy at your work, I think there's something that is speaking to you saying there's something needs to change there. And I know a lot of times for a lot of people that is way easier said than done, and it is not
circumstances are
absolutely
so different.
So I want to respect that. I've been there, and many times we're very lucky. We're very lucky if we get into a situation where work and life is all good and mishmashing well.
And not everybody's work environment looks like Disneyland.
Truly, yeah. Well said. That's an important factor to bring up.
So it's a little bit probably not easier, but it is a little. We have a little bit more propensity.
Yeah.
To be able to do
so
it
all this is to say,
so much joy.
Yeah, and all this is to say, and just to tie this up, because I'm famous for going off on a tangent train. So nice. But all this is to say that this whole family atmosphere not being something that you're used to is kind of a trip to experience, and it makes you realize that most everyone is doing it wrong and choosing to do it that way consciously. Mm-hmm. I think that's a huge, and when we talk about, a lot of this podcast is about society and culture in that sort of method of sustainability, cultural sustainability. And when we come into contact with those sorts of issues, I'm really fascinated by how in the world that works. And here it does, and I'm blown away. And I know, again, I work here, full disclosure, but it is genuinely something you have to experience to identify it as real. And that's sad to me.
Right. Because
It is sad.
And it starts in one restaurant and kind of goes outward.
Thank you
can.
for saying that.
It can.
Thank you
I mean-
for appreciating it and seeing it
Yeah.
like that, because it's true. It's like on the flip side too, I will tell you, like, it does take the right personality to see that, because it's not for everyone, and that's okay. Like we are not everyone's cup of tea, and I don't want to be, because when we find the people that we are their cup of tea, for not just being a guest here, but for people that work here, that's all that matters. Because it's true, like, it is very kind of probably traumatic and not for everyone, and we've experienced that before, and it's very heartbreaking. I can tell you right now, like, when you love hard, and when things don't work out, it's awful. And we've gone through a lot of heartbreak because we are not a lot of people's cup of tea because of that, because I think they are a little bit more guarded or don't, and that's fine.
We know what's interesting about that point you're making is I think you're touching on a really interesting. This is brought up in relationship circles a lot,
Right.
Especially in family
Yeah.
relationship counseling.
Yeah.
Is that when you've experienced enough bad relationships, you start to have these severe worthiness issues.
Yes.
And so when you experience a good relationship, a number of things happen. You don't feel like you deserve it.
Yep.
You don't feel like it's possible. You feel like they might be faking it.
Yes, or there's, like,
all
ulterior
these
motives, all
lies
of
that
it.
you start to tell yourself. And so, unfortunately, a lot of that weight is carried and sort of brought into it.
No, it really is.
And those relationships, and that's been seen not just here, but in other past businesses that really try and exercise similar things that you guys are, which there aren't many, but there's folks that are. You start to encounter employees who come in who aren't ready to experience that yet, or to receive it. I had a good friend, and this was a previous guest. Shout out to Mari Gilgi. She was a previous guest way back before the hiatus here, but she said something off the air. She said, "I figured something out." I remember she goes, "Love is receiving."
Yeah.
And she just let that sit for a while. She was like, if you think about it, if you really think about it, the art of love is receiving said love.
That's so beautiful.
It's not giving it so much. You do want to give love to but it's like a what comes first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing. If you can't receive love, how are you supposed to give that?
Exactly.
If you don't identify it as genuine and are able to receive that and be vulnerable enough to, because being able to receive love is a vulnerable act. If you can't do that, here's a tissue. If you can't do that,
Oh, I know.
then how are you supposed to consider yourself worthy enough for the relationship that gives you that love?
Right.
And so we're getting,
No, I know we're
really
getting-
personal,
no,
but
we are.
we're
But it's
talking
personal.
about a very personal business to
personal.
you two.
Oh.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's
There's
not
nothing
just
more personal.
There really isn't. And 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 I think there's a line. I will say that, and we're really trying. We're human. We're still human. There's a line, right, where we're not trying to be like the this is so personal that it's the pressure. Because okay, let's be real here too. There's a lot of pressure that could be put on all of our team because of the weight and the severity of it. So you're dancing that line every day as like a leader and a manager in order to make sure your team feels loved, supported, and seen, and all of it, but also doesn't feel the pressure because it is such an emotional business,
Yeah.
right? You don't want your team to carry that home with them.
No,
They need to be able to
that's
clock
not
off.
their.
It's not
Yeah.
their problem.
It's not
It's
their
not.
problem.
So that
Yeah.
there's and we're still trying. We're still trying to find that line because that's not okay for them to carry that with them.
Well, to support your point with that, and this will be the last thing I say before we move on to the next question here, but I think there's something that plays into that with just how society has been. There's been such an expectation to take your work home with you and to
Yeah.
come in for extra hours. Like you said, you can come in on Saturday,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
You want to see an Office Space, that's such a golden movie. That'd be
Sports time.
great.
That'd be
Yeah, that'd be great. And then if you could come in, it's just so funny. And so I could quote that movie all day. I'm a people person, damn it.
So good.
But though there's a million examples of people being expected to do things and not get paid for it.
Yeah.
And so it is no surprise to me that when it comes to the emotional roller coaster that is inevitably in places like brunch places, there's just way too much expectation, and it's just really cool of you guys to try and develop this whole thing where you can clock out and really be clocked out. But you guys have to still work within a culture that is kind of, like I mentioned earlier, tipped upside down. So you're still having to, you're trying to change the game, but you're still having to work with the rules that have been set that are fucked up. So
that's a very good way to put that.
it's interesting, this balance that you two have to kind of
it's kind of like
figure out.
What are servers paid in Idaho? Well, I mean,
great.
if you were really trying to go by what is the norm right now, I mean, that is absolutely trash. And
so, for listeners outside of Idaho, it's less than minimum wage. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so you have to try to turn things upside down.
Yeah.
That's all I can keep saying.
It's true. It's true.
And treat all of it differently.
And it shows. It really does show. So on that note, actually, I want to, we've talked about a lot of things that you two and Ezra and everybody who works here are kind of collectively wanting to accomplish as a business and everything, and especially you guys. A bit of a bold question. You can be as bold with this as you want, as much as you're comfortable with, because you do still have to work within this community.
I know, right?
What sort of responsibility do you think business owners often fall short of in terms of taking part in their communities? What kind of things do you think that are often, you don't have to name anyone specific, of course, but what sort of trends do you see that are major opportunity points in terms of the fabric of a community that a business owner inevitably takes part in?
Okay. I mean, honestly, we've talked about there's nothing more important than our team. So we've hit on that, right? And that's obviously something that is by far the most that's wrong. That's wrong here, unfortunately. But I will say the other thing too that I've personally been a part of is that people don't understand in a tight community like Coeur d'Alene. I say we're not very big. We're just not. We're getting bigger. We're still a very small community. Is that when people have businesses, they have to understand that yes, when you take something so black and white as a business plan and they ask you like, what's your competition? What's your blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yes, that's all good and well. And you have to understand that for business numbers and projections and everything. However, I think that's a little bit of a BS situation, because that kind of means that we're all against each other. And it's the opposite, truly, is that if we want to see a community that is thriving, as healthy and balanced, is that there's no competition, because here's the thing.
Each other.
We need to, when we're all busy, we're all succeeding. But if we're trying to battle against each other, that nobody wants to go support anyone then. It's not okay. And I think that each business is itself for a different reason, and they bring something different to the table for a different reason. And people don't see it like that. They just want to just be the first to be like, I have these accolades, and it's like, it doesn't. At the end of the day, none of that matters. It does not matter. None of it. It looks fancy and shiny, but it doesn't matter.
You have made extra time to be involved with some women in small business entrepreneurial groups.
I've been so lucky to be a part of
You have
some really
learned
cool things.
so much from other women in business in Coeur d'Alene, and you have networked, and that has given you strength that I'm proud to see in you. So I think your whole point is, maybe as far as what's going on around here. Well, you know what? We'd all be a lot better off if we just kind of,
we should all share it. Share our
hooked
knowledge.
up and supported each other and did more small business based
help for everything you're passionate about supporting. It would be tenfold if you had the support of other businesses.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so lucky to work with people like Evans Brothers and Back Pocket Bakery, and it's those situations that you're stronger in numbers, and it's so cool when that happens, and we can support different causes for different people for different reasons. And
that is seen in a very tangible sense, very, very much so. When when I'm working behind the bar and someone who comes in who's a business owner of another business, you guys are all like, oh my gosh, hi. And it's this so warm greeting and all that kind of stuff. Rather than this whole glare from across the room and like, oh, they own this other brand. They have a brewery that,
I'm like, I get to drink your rad ass beer. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm
You keep doing you.
You keep our lights on because we see you after work.
Yeah,
But
it's
I don't know,
really different than what you
Yeah.
normally see.
I just coming from, and you're this way.
Yeah,
You're
are this way.
Your creative
I know
brain
what
is
you're
like.
gonna say.
I love seeing other people's passion and creativity
Mm-hmm.
because it's so beautiful. Because it's something that everyone has their own thing, and I love seeing people's expression of what they get to do, and like
Mm-hmm.
it's just so cool because Coeur d'Alene's like no place else because of the people that we have here doing what they're doing. It's just really rad.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
True.
Man, it is such a pleasure to talk to you guys finally about so many of these things that we have yet, haven't, I mean, it's just been pending for so long.
know.
And like you said, Mama Jill, it's so funny how often at the end of the workday, we're all
Yeah.
just totally wiped.
You
and
want,
we're like,
you want
what
some,
a day!
You want some beans?
You want some beans, man?
Finding ourselves at the table just sitting.
We'll just sit wordlessly and we'll just be on phones and vegging out.
That's a little
and-
bit.
And I think there's
Honestly, I enjoy it. It's
too.
it's
Yeah.
a wonderful co-experience. Like
It
we're
is.
all
there's
experiencing it
safety and
together.
silence.
Absolutely. And oftentimes we all sit at the
There is.
same table and we're all just
We're all just-
we're all just sort of there. Anyone who's worked in breakfast and brunch is probably cracking up right now. Like that's how, we're just wiped but
Yeah,
in
we
a
are
satisfying way. We're all
Oh,
kind of
so
satisfied at
good.
the same time.
It's
and
so good.
But it's lovely to finally get to talk to you two
Love you.
about your origins and what it is you're about, because I'm excited for people to actually hear this. Coming here and experiencing it is one thing. It's very tangible and energetic, and your passion really shines outward and is very much obvious when you come in here. I mean, it's especially when the servers talk you up and all this stuff. Like everybody is cool and excited about this. So that said, I just want to thank you two for joining me today. This has been a delight. I'm so excited that the podcast is back.
I know. Can I tell you that I'm excited? I'm excited. Again, I feel really honored to be on this one because
Yeah.
I've just loved all that you've brought to relationships since episode 1, and I think it's really cool.
Well,
So thanks for
you
being back.
you guys are truly for those dear listener. These are OG listeners of the podcast. TJ especially
Yeah.
came to me one day. I don't remember when it was a long time ago,
Sounds
and
like
had
old
listened
friends.
to all of my stuff. And I was like, "You've listened to what?"
I told Mom.
it blew my
I told
mind.
Mom and I
No,
were in
I
the
got to-
aisle.
I
You
did
know
listen.
The peanut butter and jelly aisle at
Yep.
Pilgrims.
Yep.
We were literally down that aisle, and I was like, "Oh!" And it was
Mom,
I was
you gotta
like,
meet
Mom,
Jet.
Mom, oh my God, it's a podcast.
And I got your
Oh, this
sticker.
must have been when I
And
worked
yeah,
at
you got your
Pilgrims.
sticker.
Yeah,
I still
yeah,
have
yeah.
your
Yep.
sticker.
I still got plenty of those. So I met
Cool.
those guys.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Well,
I told you earlier, and you can take this for whatever you want, but I was like, you're such a Renaissance guy. Like I'm feeling kind of cooler, like knowing you and
Oh
stuff.
my
because
gosh.
no, I'm serious. like you are. Yeah, I cannot believe how many talents you have. And when you asked us to do this, can we? I was so honored that, of course, I cried, and super honored because I think you're just one of the most thoughtful humans
You
that
are.
I've met.
Oh,
And
you
when
guys.
you
So
look at
many
when
years.
you look at people, you look
Yeah,
at them.
You do.
And I appreciate you.
yeah. Thank you.
well, you're a couple of dolls. I mean it from the bottom of my heart, and I'm having to use humor so as not to cry in this moment.
Yeah, we overcompensate here.
So I have to host a podcast here, okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, okay. So thank you both so much. Seriously, we'll be thinking about this for eons to come. And I want just to end here with, for those who are in Coeur d'Alene, you already know about 10-6, but for those, let's pretend that no one knows 10-6 exists. How do they find you?
Oh man, we need to do a better job. I will say that that's something I'm really lacking in right now. The internet's cool.
I know there's. I'll help you. I know there's an Instagram
We
page.
do.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
social media, and shout out to our
What's the-
sweet Ashley because she's been helping so much
Oh,
with
yeah.
that. So
Ashley Dorr, big help.
Big help.
It's at 106CDA. So TEN, the number 6 CDA, as in Coeur d'Alene. That's our Instagram. We have a Facebook, but I don't know really who looks at Facebook.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
We have a lovely website. It kind of paints a little bit of a picture, but we kind of wanted to leave some to the imagination. So
It is a beautiful website, I have to say.
But yeah, we 106cda.com. You can make reservations, and we would kind of recommend that just so we can we love reservations because we
Love
love
it.
all the extra notes that people put in about their dining
We know it's your
experience.
birthday. We've
you're
got a
coming in
treat
for.
ready for
Yeah.
you. We've
Anniversary.
got
So
yeah,
reservations are honestly the way to go. I know it's not very practical all the time, but we do take walk-ins if we don't have reservations fully booked.
Mhm.
But we're kind of trying to get better about the presence of advertising. But I will say we're coming up into what Brandon, I love Brandon's analogy of this, is
Brandon is our bar manager.
Oh, yes.
Shout out to you, Brandon.
Oh, Brandon,
He makes
love
the
you, Brando.
videos and the audio
Sweet angel.
look and sound so good.
obviously and another one of the best baristas in town.
He is easily
honestly.
one of the best baristas in
Yeah.
Coeur d'Alene. Absolutely.
He explained something to me that was really eye-opening. We have, A-level, celebrations or A-level theming time of year. So one of our A-level theming is coming up, and that is Halloween season. We do a massive overlay of Halloween time.
Oh,
and
man.
that's coming up actually in less than a week. We're overlaying for...
What day officially does that start?
So that will be...
Both for the listener and me, because I forgot.
Technically, so we're doing our big overlay on Labor Day. So it'll be technically September 4th.
4th, okay.
Will be the first day
Full
of our
on
big
Halloween.
Halloween overlay.
Yeah.
And it will go all the way through the end, so October 31st into November.
Yeah.
Get pumped,
So-
chumps!
Let's go!
Yep. And you know what? We don't care. Go ahead, be mad at us. We love Halloween, and we're going to start it here.
Oh my God.
Oh, man.
And on that note,
On that note, I would just like to thank you both once again. This has been an absolute treat. And if you haven't been to
Thank you
10-6
so
and you
much.
live in Coeur d'Alene, what are you doing? Get in here.
Get over here. Eat some breakfast. Do it.
All right. Well, love you guys very much.
Love you.
So long, everybody.
All right, guys, that's going to be it for this week's discussion. It was such an honor to be able to talk with those two. So remember, the Kickstarter campaign ends Saturday, September 21st. You've got a little over 2 weeks by the time this has been released to donate what you can or to share with your friends. Anything counts. Really appreciate your help. It is for a noble cause. Thank you so much for listening. If you find the time and you want to support in other ways, you can also leave a review and like us wherever it's applicable, wherever you're listening. It really, really helps out quite a bit. Thanks again for coming in, you guys. I cannot wait to come back next week for more discussions. I've been Jet. This has been Sustainable Culture. We'll see you soon.